I rise today on behalf of Mr. Cloud of Texas to offer Amendment Number 5 to H.R. 277, the REINS Act.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment Number 5, printed in Part A of House Report Number 118-108, offered by Ms. Hageman of Wyoming.
Pursuant to House Resolution 495, the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Hagen, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming.
Thank you. I am proud to be a co-sponsor of the REINS Act, which is an important effort to ensure Congress reclaims its rightful authority and responsibility to legislate. This amendment is technical in nature, but it is important nonetheless. In April of this year, the Biden administration issued an executive order on modernizing the regulatory review. The purpose of this executive order is to allow the administration to implement their agenda more quickly and efficiently. The executive order also raises the threshold for centralized review by the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, or OIRA, from $150 million to $200 million. The order also gives the administrator of OIRA a discretionary role in determining which regulations are considered for full OIRA review. OIRA serves as a responsible check on major regulations, reviewing the costs and benefits of each regulation and ensuring that all public comments have been reviewed and considered before the regulation goes into effect. OIRA, in other words, is a check on due diligence. This order will mean that fewer rules are reviewed by OIRA and thus less due diligence will be conducted over the administrative state. So long as this executive order stands, a loophole will exist in the REINS Act. Fewer rules will be classified as major and consequently would not be subject to congressional approval under the REINS Act. My amendment would close this loophole by clarifying that OIRA must issue a finding of the full cost-benefit analysis of each rule and issue a determination as major or minor according to that finding. I urge the adoption of my amendment, and I yield back and reserve my time.
The gentlewoman reserves? Does the gentlewoman reserve?
Reserves.
Gentlewoman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York wish to be recognized?
Mr. Chairman, I claim the time in opposition.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr.
For 5
Chairman.
minutes.
What? Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Nonpartisan Congressional Research Service has previously noted that estimating the total cost of regulations is inherently difficult and that such estimates of the cost of regulation should be viewed with a great deal of caution. Like the OMB, CRS has noted that there are significant methodological challenges to estimating and aggregating the total costs and benefits of rules. I rise in opposition to this amendment as it requires the OMB to make a specific determination of a rule's impact, when they already say it's difficult to make an estimate of the impact. This amendment requires the OMB to do the impossible, to make a specific finding when OMB and CRS already said that even estimates are very difficult and inherently unreliable. To request a finding is to request the impossible, and therefore I oppose this amendment. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Gentlewoman is recognized.
Yes, I think that my colleague on the other side of the aisle just confirmed why this amendment is necessary and why the REINS Act is so important. What I believe I heard him say is that because it's difficult for the administration to determine what the cost of these regulations are, they shouldn't have to make any determination at all. And there should be no oversight whatsoever, either from OIRA or OMB, because it's just too doggone difficult to figure out how much these regulations are going to cost. Frankly, I find that argument absolutely and completely absurd. We're talking about tax money. We're talking about a cost and expense that is being imposed against our small businesses, our mom and pop businesses, against our industry groups. And what the gentleman from the other side is saying is that nobody, including this administration, should ever have to disclose what the cost of those regulations are. That is exactly the reason as to why we need a robust review by OIRA as provided for in this amendment. And I reserve my additional time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman reserves.
The gentleman reserves.
Gentlewoman from Wyoming.
Gentlewoman from Wyoming.
Yes, I do think that it's clear that it is important to make this technical change for the REINS Act. It is important that we have an understanding as to what the cost of these regulations will be. The very purpose of the REINS Act is to ensure that Congress is part of the legislative process for any regulation that would have an economic impact of over $100 million. Without a robust review by OIRA, it's not possible to determine which of these regulations, in fact, would fit within that category. It's for that reason that I request the adoption of this amendment. It is a good one for the REINS Act, and it ensures that we close an important loophole to make sure that it is the Congress that is legislating and not the executive branch and unelected bureaucrats. With that, I yield.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I've expressed my opposition to the entire REINS Act because, as I said before, we are not competent. Congress cannot possibly decide how many parts per billion of arsenic is safe in the air for people to breathe, or how many rads of radiation are safe to have in X-rays before it causes cancer. We don't know that. That is why we write general laws, and we have written in those laws, we have delegated the power to make specific rules to agencies who are staffed by thousands of experts in each particular field. That's why the REINS Act is so pernicious, because it would stop this. It would make us make those decisions, and we have no competence to make those decisions. The REINS Act is bad enough, but this amendment, which says that the OIRA must issue a finding for each rule determining whether the rule has a significant economic impact, given that OMB and CRS have both said that it is very difficult to make even estimates. You can't make a finding. A finding implies exactitude. Given the fact that even the estimates are very difficult and unreliable, a finding is impossible. An amendment should not require that someone do the impossible, and therefore I oppose the amendment, and I yield back.
The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Wyoming. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.